Alright, so this video is something that I'm doing because currently right now in ECE 170 I'm covering Emergent Curriculum, and I'm learning that Emergent Curriculum is something that the students have control over the way that they want to learn, as long as the teacher and facilitator is guiding them appropriately. And emergent curriculum is actually more so used for like practicum stuff rather than sitting down at a desk and uh, speaking things out. You're more likely to use and defer to emergent curriculum if you use things like nature, outdoors, physical activity, sports. I know that I personally don't use or do not learn through theory as well as I do through practicum, but that's because when I'm learning in theory, it tends to go in one ear out the other, but when I take what I've learned from that theory and I put it in towards a practicum, I have an oh, so this is how you do it type of moment. And then that, this is how you do it type of moment allows me to take other things that I'm seeing in that moment and place it into the no part of the theory that I have learned. If that makes any sense. In emergent curriculum, I believe that children are seen as the facilitators, children are seen as the learners, and the teacher is seen as the guide. It belongs to the fact that children learn the way that they choose to learn and the way that they learn best. The process of emergent curriculum begins when you are teaching somebody something, and then that another person raises their hand and says, like, oh, well, what if we did this? Does that correlate into what we're learning now? And then the teacher will divert and they'll say, yes, it does because of this, this, and this. Now an example of that is when you're out for a walk and you're doing this style of walking while learning, which is like your see, your think, your smell, your touch. Personally, I do this a lot when I'm with my kid. We're walking and he likes to touch things, and when he's touching certain things, I'll say like, oh, you're touching a leaf, or oh, you're touching the sign, or oh, you're touching a puppy. And my kid is too young to be able to talk back to me, but ideally what that does is it brings up other questions that the kid might have about the object that they're touching. So if you want your kid to learn about nature and they're walking and you like they touch a leaf and they say, oh, you're touching a leaf, and then they'll say, oh, well, this leaf is the color green and I like the color green, and then they'll go on to ask like, what other types of colored leaves are there? And then you'll say, oh, there's yellow leaves, there's brown leaves, and leaves turn those colors when it hits the fall season, but leaves are green when it's in the summertime. And you'll be teaching your kid about nature that way. And that's what emergent curriculum is finding a topic to speak about, but branching off to speak about other things that are within the same context of that topic. Now, after emergent curriculum is done for, or a style of emergent curriculum is done, usually there's a thing for reflective questions that you can either ask yourself or you can ask the students. And say when you're finished your walk, you go and ask your kid or your group of kids like, oh, okay, and what did we learn today? And you'll review, like you went and talked about the leaves. What did you learn about the leaves? You learned that they change colors with different seasons. You'll say like, oh, well, we saw a puppy today on our walk. What did you learn about the puppy? Those are the types of questions for reflective learning that you can ask your kids. But some of the questions that you can ask yourself are, how did I do this today and what can I do to make it better? Is it better if I do this instead of this? Is it better if I'm using actions instead of theory? Is it better if we're learning about those things inside versus outside? It's those are the kinds of questions that you can ask yourself to help you expand on emergent curriculum and expand your ways of teaching along the lines. In which ways do facilitators and teachers differ? At first, I thought that facilitators and teachers are the same thing, and in a way they are, but the facilitator is the one that gets the activity going, and the teacher is the one that teaches that activity using what the facilitator has brought in. Now, you can be both. You can be the person that gets it all set up, and you can be the person that teaches, but sometimes the person that gets it set up doesn't know what the teacher is going to teach. So in order to be both of those things, you have to be organized. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to be helpful. You have to be concise with what you're trying to relay to your students. And you have to be creative in the ways that you're trying to teach, because not all kids learn the same, especially with theory, practice, and practicum. What are the roles of the environment specific to the practice that you're trying to use for emergent curriculum? So we're going to go here with comic books. Say I'm trying to speak to someone about comic books that doesn't know a single thing. I'm going to get you to look at my Wonder Woman poster over there. I know a fair bit about comics. If I were to try and teach someone that in emergent curriculum style way, I would sit them down first and I would explain to them, like showing pictures and diagrams, like this is that, this is Wonder Woman, this is Superman, this is Batman, they all tie into the DC universe. And then I would go over onto Marvel and I would explain the Marvel universe, but I would do so with pictures. I would do so with a collage. And I would explain a little bit under each picture that I'd show, like Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, how they all came to light. But I would also make sure and include all the other underrated superheroes that are not ones that people speak too much about, like The Flash or Catwoman. And yes, I'm referencing DC a lot here because I love DC. And speaking about those underrated superheroes would actually get more questions asked about them because they're the ones that are least known about. That is what emergent curriculum is. The role of the child in emergent curriculum is for them to be able to ask the questions that they deem they want the answers to, as long as it's in the guidelines that the teacher is trying to teach to the student. I hope you were able to gain a little bit of information on emergent curriculum from this video, and I hope that you have a great day. Bye now.